What's going on, Junkie Nation? Gorgeous George and Goes are back. We got another legend in the sport of not only mixed martial arts, but also boxing, except we're going to focus more on the mixed martial arts side because next week, Mr. Marc Ratner, the Vice President of Government and Regulatory Affairs for the UFC, will be inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame for the class of 2020. Welcome back, Marc. How you doing?
Good, George. Good goes. As always, I'm delighted to be with you guys. So, and we can talk about, besides MMA, we can talk about hoops, football, whatever you want.
Oh, yeah. We plan on it. Well, yeah, let's just start with the hot hand, and then we'll settle into next week. I will be there. Goes will be there to the Hall of Fame. Excuse me. But how about that Raider game? First one back with fans. And I know when we were setting up this interview, you told me you were there. That place was buzzing. And I know you've seen it all, but that had to be a pretty special night.
No, it was amazing. I thought that there were so many crazy plays, and they could have lost the game so easily. The one that really I felt aggravated about was a delay of game on field goal in OT. That's strange. Then you hate to have a false start at second and inches, but they overcame everything and won the game, and it was exciting. Just so you know, I have a job there at the Raider games. It's called coach-to-player cutoff operator. So there's two guys who have green dots on the back of their helmet on offense and defense. And the coaches can talk to them until 15 seconds on the play clock, and then I cut them off.
Right.
No more talking. So that's a fun job for me.
I remember you told us about that. And Derek Carr was also explaining how, he got the word in his helmet that he needed to go out there when he had a second opportunity. Right. And how about the difference between Derek Carr, who's, I know Lamar can throw, but he's such a Lamar Jackson. I know Lamar can throw, but I mean, what a threat with the ball when he tucks it and runs. And I know Derek Carr can run, but that guy was just launching the ball everywhere. And that last one where he's just falling behind, he read the defense. And you're right, they had to win it twice, but those were two outstanding athletes. Couldn't be any different, but yet they both led their offenses in very capable ways.
No question. And I felt bad because Mariota, he gets hurt on the one play where he goes for 30 yards. That would have been he could be a big help in different parts of the offense. So I hope he gets well. Yeah,
for sure. All right. Well, like I said, next Thursday is a big day. We're a year late from this. The class of 2020 will be inducted on September 23rd here in Las Vegas. And what are your feelings about it? I know you were very emotional when they surprised you with it at the Apex last year, but now that it's settled in and it's actually happening, what are your thoughts on it? This has to be pretty special for you. You've now been with the UFC longer than you have as the executive director for the Nevada State Athletic Commission, minus those years when you started off as an inspector, but in those prime positions.
Well, I'm still overwhelmed by this honor. I feel Hall of Fame should first and foremost always be about the fighters, about the players, and I'm thrilled that they selected me as a contributor. But it is overwhelming and something I never even thought about, and so I'm excited to be there Thursday and a little bit nervous too.
Who will be introducing you?
We're going to be sort of quiet, but recognizable people from part of my life here.
Okay. And then you also said you were a little nervous. What are you nervous about? This is like the third or fourth Hall of Fame you'll be in. And, I mean, if you had to give Tyson a $3 million fine, that's about as nerve-wracking as it gets. or handling the Fan Man incident, or having to fly to Albany 20 times and knowing you were going to get shut down until you eventually prevailed. I think you had a lot of tougher, more nerve-wracking obstacles, no?
It's I think just making a speech, thinking about that, trying to put all my thoughts down and do it in 9 or 10 minutes and not forget somebody, which was inevitable. But yeah, I was just thinking about it. But hopefully, once I get started, then I'll be able to get through the speech, and it'll be fun.
Who will be going from the Ratner clan? How deep are you going to roll?
Brother-in-law, sister, grandkids, my kids, plenty of my people, and there'll be a little contingent of some of my friends and some of my boxing people and the commissions. So yeah, I'll have a lot of people, and the staff. They're going to be there. Anybody who wants to from the UFC staff. So I think they'll have a pretty big crowd.
I guess my next question, or really what I also wanted to know was, from boxing, what kind of support have you gotten from that side, and will they be in attendance? And it sounds like they will, but any names you can tell us about there?
Well, there won't be any boxers, more commission people, the former chairman of the commission. But this is about MMA, and so we didn't invite, I didn't invite fighters per se. But it reminds me of the Boxing Hall of Fame. When Dana walked in, and this was as hardcore boxing fans as there are, and they lined up to get his autograph. It shows me that it's unbelievable how far MMA has really come.
Wow. So, Marc, in everything that you do, you've done so much for just sports in general here in Las Vegas for us and, throughout the United States. But the one thing that stands out is what happened in New York. George mentioned it, how many times he got on that plane for the benefit of our sport. All the naysayers, any of them that you've come across throughout your career, whether it was in boxing or MMA, have you had any of them ever pull you aside and just say, you know what, I was wrong. You were right.
Well, when it was first announced, this is back in 2006, that I was coming over to the UFC and MMA, I had several boxing people said, "You're making a big mistake, and once you leave, you can't come back." And I've had talked with several of them, and they know that I made the right decision, and I don't look back. I love boxing still. I love going to the fights, and if there's no conflict, I still go. But 15 and a half years ago, I made the right decision.
When you first took this job, in your mind, if you said years later, I'm sure you might have had a vision of where you thought you would be or the things you've done. How close are you to what you imagined when you first took the job to what actually played out?
Light years away. When I first talked with Lorenzo and Dana, we talked about going to New York every once in a while. We didn't talk about the rest of the world. I never dreamt I'd be going to Brazil or Sweden or England or Germany or Russia, all those kind of places. So that wasn't even a thought. I knew that my job would entail going to state capitals, and as I always say, it wasn't only me. We had a team of lawyers. We had my guy Mike Mersch with me, and we crisscrossed across the country. But New York was always the one we had to get, and it was about 7.5, 8 years. But now I look back, and it doesn't matter. We've been there 16, 17 times, and it's all good.
If you can take us through one of those ventures to going to a state in person, how would something like that go? Like, how would your pitch go? And I guess what was your bread and butter in terms of selling the UFC? Because obviously the resistance was usually probably, I think, too violent. So was there certain statistics or how would you frame the pitch that you felt like turned the corner and had, these commissions seriously look at it and then eventually approve it?
Well, first of all, you go to a state, you just can't walk into a state senator or a state assemblyman's office. You have to hire a lobbyist. That's the first thing you have to do, and get the right lobbyist. Obviously, in New York, we had one of the best in the world. But in these different states, we had to do that. And then with a lot of legislators you meet with, they may be of an older generation, maybe my generation, and they're not interested to start with, but their staff knows all about it. And one of my big selling points was TV. You're saying you don't want it in this state, but you can watch it on TV. You can buy pay-per-view. What is the big problem here? And yeah, some people thought it was violent. but for me, it was always about education, and slowly but surely we would meet with the athletic commissions as well and talk to them and say, look at the economic impact. It's such a big thing here. And, the neighboring states, they already have it. You want your fans going somewhere else across the border. So those are the kind of things, and economic impact is a big selling point.
Do you know an actual number of the economic impact to one of your bigger shows, which I imagine would be maybe the New York shows or a California show, or maybe there's another city we're leaving out?
Well, I remember we did one in Buffalo. I think the economic impact was $5 million. In New York, much more. And we've done some here. Those are hard figures that the convention and visitors will come up with, and there's a lot of details that they know how to come up with. But wherever we go in the country or the world, economically, it's well worth it for that city or that country.
I want to piggyback off one of Goz's questions that he asked, but more specifically to New York. Once you were sanctioned in New York and you guys put on maybe 1 or 2 or 3 shows, was there anyone in New York that pulled you aside and said, we got it wrong, we should have done this earlier, especially after seeing the economic impact there? And you can't use Randy Gordon, who's also a good friend of ours, former colleague of SiriusXM, also a former executive director of the state of New York, but I guess you could use him. But was there anyone else?
No, I mean, the commission was very thrilled to be with us. And obviously, Randy, I grew up in the regulatory part of my life with him. So he and Jerry Cooney are great guys. But I know I've never had a legislator come up. But those people change every 2 years or every 4 years. So I know former Governor Cuomo was very happy with it. And it's been so successful, and I can't wait to go back there next November. We'll be back in 2 months. So, New York's a very special place for us.
That is a big card. Kamaru Usman versus Colby Covington, Rose Namajunas against Zhang Weili. Some great fights, and I think they recently put the tickets on sale. So, New York is back. I know that's a big market for y'all. And is there any particular city that the UFC hasn't been going to because of the pandemic that you can't wait to get back, that we may not know about? Is that you have a favorite little cozy city that you really, really like when UFC goes there?
I love going to Boston also. Hopefully we'll go there the first part of next year. I would love to go to San Francisco. We haven't been to the Bay Area for a long time. We have a new venue where the Warriors play. I think that would be fabulous. We always do good in Anaheim or Staples, but those are the kind of places. We've been to a lot of smaller cities, and it's just as exciting there, and the fans are so happy that we do come there. We even went to Bangor, Maine one time, and we crisscrossed quite a few places. But the good thing for us has been this Apex Arena, where we've been able to, during this pandemic, have shows almost every week. So that was a godsend for us.
Yeah, that's a good call on San Francisco. They do have a nice new arena there. They took the Warriors from Oakland to the other side of the bay, and it's beautiful. I think it's called the Chase Center. I wondered how much impact, or what? I guess how much input do you have when it comes to taking the show on the road? Like, do you have a say in it or anything like that? For example, you just brought up San Francisco. Is that something you've been keeping to yourself? Do you bring it up often? Do they come to you for that type of thing?
Well, the first thing they come to me on is, how do you work with the commission? And do the commission have the right rules? Are they unified rules? Do they have any changes? So that's one of the determinants where we're going to go. Most of the time, I can work with the commission, and they'll use the right rules, the unified rules. So that's my first thing. As far as my impact with our venue people, it's not really. Northern California is a market that we haven't been to for a while. They know that. They also do demographic studies. So we have a pretty good idea where we're going. Just that the pandemic knocked us back for a while. But we'll go to Europe more next year, hopefully, and everything works out. Australia again. So it's a growing business, and yeah, I'm looking forward to keep traveling.
Has Cub Swanson, UFC featherweight, made his pitch yet for Palm Springs? I guess they're building a new arena out there. And then my parents, Goz and I, our parents live in the Inland Empire of California, which is pretty big now. You know, we're Orange County boys, but the Inland Empire slowly grew it. And I think they have something called Citizens Arena with about 15,000. Any thoughts on that part of California? Still Southern California?
We really haven't. I haven't discussed it. Our fans for Anaheim or Staples come from the whole surrounding area. So I don't know if he would go to the Inland Empire, but it's certainly possible. There's an actual arena, I think, in Ontario too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a StubHub Arena outside. That's great. I don't know if they still call it that, but our go-tos for right now will be Anaheim and Staples, and I know I think that the Clippers are just breaking ground today for a new arena also.
Yeah, I'm not sure who the Clippers are. We're Laker guys over here, but I heard there's another little team out there in LA. But you're right, it is Ontario. That's the one I meant. That's Citizens. And as far as StubHub, I actually saw I think they were RFA at the time. Now they're LFA. I did see a show in the what used to be the Home Depot. They have soccer there, and they also, I guess, I didn't know this until then, it's a big tennis arena. And they had a show in the tennis arena, but what they weren't aware of was how close to the ocean they were. So they were slipping on the canvas. So you got to get the right canvas if you want to do an outshore there. But other than that, it was a beautiful night in California.
Yeah, and the other area we do well in is San Diego. We've done a lot of shows down there. So, yeah, it just depends on getting through the pandemic and then finding the right areas for us to go to.
Brandon Moreno, what kind of impact can he have for the UFC and for the UFC in Mexico? You've definitely seen what the big Mexican fighters have done in boxing and what a huge market Mexico is for boxing. What do you see for Brandon Moreno if he can continue to defend the title? And the guy just oozes charisma. He's young. He probably has a lot of years left. What are your thoughts on that guy?
First of all, he's a great kid. Just a wonderful personality. And you take a look at him and you say, boy, I can't believe what a good fighter he is. And he really is a tough kid. But yes, he opens up the Hispanic market for us very well. And we would love to take him back to Mexico City when we can. But he'll be a very important part of us traveling in the future. And he'll be on the show pretty soon. But I love the way he fights, and what a tough kid. And he and Figueiredo, great fights. So I look forward to seeing him fight soon.
Does he remind you of any specific Mexican fighter, or maybe a hybrid of all of them? I mean, everybody knows Julio Cesar Chavez, Canelo Alvarez, but of course there's Salvador Sanchez, Ruben Olivares, Eric Morales, Juan Manuel Marquez. Any of him that he kind of maybe his personality reminds you of?
Maybe back in the day, Michael Carbajal, because they're smaller, Humberto Gonzalez.
Oh yeah,
those kind of fighters because they're smaller. But his charisma, Jorge Paez had some of the best charisma of any of them. But you still got to be able to fight, and he can fight. He's a real warrior, and that's why I like to watch him.
I know the UFC doesn't have the benefit of doing all their shows in Mexico, so they got to pick wisely. But could Tijuana ever host an event? Have you guys ever looked into Tijuana? That's where he's from. And then you have probably a huge American crowd that could also come over. What are your thoughts on that city?
Well, I haven't been to Tijuana for years and years. I think it would depend on how easy it is to go over the border, and once again, pandemic-wise, and is it easier just to do it in San Diego and have the Hispanic crowd come over there? That I haven't even thought about. I've had the same questions about Juarez or So I don't know. I think when we go to Mexico, we'll be maybe Guadalajara, certainly Mexico City. And I think we would go to the bigger cities.
Mark, you brought up the name Michael Carbajal, and I'm curious. To your right, there is a wall with a bunch of badges from older events. Is there a Chiquita Gonzalez, Michael Carbajal one in there by any chance?
Yes, there is.
Oh my God, they had wars. Those were great fights.
And we were just in Phoenix not long ago, and Michael was there, and still looks good. I don't know. I think he was fighting in those days, maybe at 118 or 115. He may not weigh that anymore, but what a great fighter he was. And the other one that reminds me of little going back, Paulie Ayala.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had some good ones with Tapia.
Yeah, that's on my wall too.
Wow. I wanted to get your take on guys like Anderson Silva and Vitor Belfort. They've been boxing and they haven't looked too bad. What's your take on athletes in general? Like if you were to take a person like Anderson Silva and if he just missed the MMA boat but took his stab at boxing, do you think he could have done pretty well for himself, or is this just a matter of matchups and timing?
Well, it's an interesting thought. I don't know. Some guys look really good until they get hit. And I mean, Tito looked like he hit him a little bit, but not really. And Anderson did. He landed some good, strong punches. What I am for is people to make money, for fighters to make money. I don't like the idea for Evander fighting at 59, certainly. I think about Bernard Hopkins, who fought right at, like it was 51 or 52, never lost a step. But there's very few who can do that. The saying is you can play football or baseball, but when you're playing boxing, it's a different world. You've got to be real careful. I was really happy for the California Commission turning down that fight. And I'm not sure if the Florida Commission should have approved it. I think that in the same scenario, if I was still the director, we would not have approved Evander to fight here. I just think it's just too dangerous.
You know, this is very interesting. It actually got discussed. So if you don't mind me following up, you just said if you were executive director, you think you may not have done it. We were saying the same thing, applauding California, and maybe Florida needs to learn from this. How can a commission take a look at a fighter and either approve him if he in fact is ready to go, or not approve him? What would you be doing? Does it all come from the doctors, or is it private workouts they have to do, or what would you have to what would your eye have to captivate to make a decision like that?
Well, the first thing would be medical, and this goes back to when Evander when he fought Mike. I think we sent him to the Mayo Clinic, if I remember correctly, and yes, he had a slight heart problem of some kind, and we had to get him passed and approved before he could fight. And so now you're talking about, I'm not sure what the Florida Commission did or not, but yeah, you'd have to have medical testing, go before a medical advisory board, go before your commission, and certainly you should go watch him spar and see how he looked. If it's just a guy hitting a bag, that doesn't tell me anything. I would want to see him spar.
Did you watch the fight, and what were your thoughts that night if you did?
I didn't watch it that night. I watched the replay, and it was sad because it didn't look like he really got hit solid, but his legs were gone and he had no balance. So I don't want to see that. I admire Evander. He's one of my favorite fighters, and I just don't want to see him get hurt.
You know, a couple names that have just recently retired that, who knows, maybe one day we might be talking to them the same way we're talking to you about Hall of Fames. Carlos Condit and Joseph Benavidez. Can you maybe share some of your favorite memories of those two?
Oh, absolutely. Carlos, what a great man he is, a great fighter. he fought for so many, probably, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 years, a lot of main events, and had some injuries, but came back and just a great human being. I got to know his father, and his biggest fan was former Governor Richardson from the state of New Mexico, who came to all his fights. So I like that. Carlos' father was the chief of staff for Governor Richardson. So yeah, it's a nice family, and Albuquerque was a great place for him to train. Joey B, just as tough as can be. Certainly, also one of my favorite fighters, and he, I don't think he was ever in a bad fight. What a tough kid, and what a great life he's going to have, and what a beautiful wife. He married so well, and Megan is so wonderful. So I'm very happy for both of them. I think this is the right time for them both to retire, and I look forward to us seeing them in our fights and working with them.
Marc, one thing that I've been wanting to ask you for a long time, I just haven't had the opportunity, and it's because I want to see if you're going to put me in my place. Because sometimes I feel like I'm making a good point, and then sometimes I come across people and they go, no, they just completely disagree with me. Your thought on linear kicks. I just feel like they don't really add much to a fight, and I feel like one day we just had a pretty bad injury, but I feel like one day we may even have a worse one. And I just feel like the day that happens and people see it, it's something that's going to go away. But what do you think of this technique? Is it something that the UFC is looking at all?
We haven't really discussed it. I know the Association of Boxing Combat Commissions is going to do a study on it. It's unusual that it lands so perfectly to really injure somebody. It's a tough. I think it's a tough way to throw that kick. Sometimes it did work in that last fight, but for the most part, I haven't seen many injuries from it. But I think that the medical advisory board for the ABC is going to look at it. We really haven't discussed it here. It has not been a big problem, but you're right. I would hate to see somebody really get hurt. So it's something we're always going to be looking at.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. That's awesome that at least it doesn't get brushed aside and that it gets looked at. And you're right. To be fair, it hasn't happened often. It does have to be thrown perfectly between both parties for it to have that kind of damage. I've always said I come from the football world where, even though everyone's trying to take each other's heads off, there was certain unofficial rules of trying to roll up on someone's knee, especially in the line of scrimmage, or even in basketball. That little submarine move that people will do when someone's shooting on the playground, and there's nothing you can do. There's no officials there, but, you obviously tell someone stop doing that. Hey, look, if you're going to make the shot and you beat me, great, but let me land safely so that I can go back and play D and we can keep doing this and we can, in this case, keep making money. To Bukauskas' I got to give him credit. He did not say anything derogatory about Roundtree. They both accepted it like men, but still, I just hate the fact that he may not be able to walk for the next 3 months and then not fight for the next year and provide. And I know knockouts are obviously horrible as well when someone's trying to remove somebody from consciousness. But we've seen people can come back from a knockout in 3 months or fight. It's advised to wait maybe 6, but all that is still not a year, and at least you can usually walk back to your dressing room, to your hotel room, and get back on a plane and then start functioning as a human being most of the time, right away.
Right. Yeah, no, I think it has some merit. I've seen 3 of these broken legs on their shin bones. Besides Anderson, how about in basketball? I saw it with Paul. I mean, it happened right at Thomas and Mack, and Paul George. Then with Connor. So these things will happen, and that's nobody's fault. But I believe we have to keep looking at different scenarios, and I think medically we'll have the study done, and we'll see. But right now, it's not something that's in the forefront of what we're talking about.
When will Allegiant Stadium have Bruce Buffer announcing fights, not the intro to a football game? What do you think? Maybe summer of 2022, International Fight Week? Give us a little hint. I know you got to know.
Well, no, it's certainly possible, and what a great weekend for the Buffers. Michael did the intro to the Rams, and
Yeah.
Bruce was here, and he was so energized, and he did such a great job. That was, for me, it was really great to see him, and I congratulated him later that night. But Norwegian would it has to be the right fighter. What a big stadium it is, and you have to let it marinate, as they say in boxing, or percolate. And I'm not sure what the right fight would be, but it would have to be a big card, and something that we would love to do. But everything has to be right, the timing and the fighters.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I know the last time we chatted, I think we were talking about either Jones and Adesanya or Jones and Ngannou. And I'm thinking right now, Jones is just completely out of the game. He's moving up to heavyweight, so I don't see him and Adesanya. Of course, it could be him and Ngannou, but he's got business with Cyril Gane first. Right. So you're right. I don't know what the big one is. And then Conor versus Poirier 4 would be nice for a title, but I think Conor has such a long road back, and he'd probably have to win a fight, I would imagine, in that heavily stacked lightweight division. So I don't know. Can you guys think of one right now, or is that the problem? Is there isn't one right now?
I don't know how far that Dana has thought about it. You always have Conor and Nate, whether that would be a stadium fight, I don't know. But there's a lot of good fights, and when we talk about the UFC, this contender, we keep on finding fighters and we're building them up. And there's so many fighters around the world that we don't know about yet. And it takes time to publicize them, build them up, put them in the right fight. So we don't know what's going around the corner. Cyril Gane is a pretty new guy. Ngannou's only fought for 4 or 5 years. And obviously, we want to go to Paris next year, and we would love to have one of those guys on the card, or maybe fighting each other. So if we were to have Gane fight Ngannou for our first fight in Paris, that would be a big thing.
Finally, let's close with this. I know you're close to collegiate athletics, not just the combat sports world. UNLV football and basketball, what does it take? What kind of moves does it take to get them back to, I'll say, where they were in regards to basketball when it was a national powerhouse, and then obviously for football, just to take those next steps to compete and be a top 20 school consistently? Because it looks like they have facilities, they have stadium, they have a good spotlight on them. You know, the fans will go and support when they're winning. It's tougher now because you got so many other tickets you can buy, so the family of 4 has to be prudent. You know, the Vegas Golden Knights obviously may have taken away some of the UNLV crowd. I'm not sure, but is there any quick fixes out there for that?
There's no quick fixes. Goz and I discussed this earlier before we went on the air. I think the next big hire is the right AD. You have to have the right AD. I think Coach Arroyo and Coach Kruger are both going to be quality coaches. Arroyo certainly had a honeymoon year last year, no practice, no nothing. Tough schedule to start with this year. Hopefully he can get some wins. You said it, we have the best facilities in the world, but whoever is this new AD, the whole emphasis should be going to the Pac, trying to get included in the Pac-12 when they expand, and to really and then if you can recruit on the same basis as an Oregon State or a Washington State or something, eventually you can build a program up. Basketball is easier in the fact that you only have to have a couple real big guys, good guys, and you can fill it in. I think this year, Coach Kruger, with the transfer portal, has got a lot of new players, and I think that they'll be surprisingly good. And I look forward to being there. And I think that, I think they're going to have a good year. And I certainly hope football in the new stadium, like I said, will get some wins and start building. It's tough here. There's no question about it. But we have the best facilities of anybody in the Pac-12. So eventually I think we'll be in there.
Mr. Ratner, want to thank you so much for giving us over 30 minutes here of your time. And we're a little bit over a week away, or about a week away here from the Hall of Fame induction for yourself in the contributor wing of the UFC Hall of Fame. So early congrats. We'll see you that night, and hopefully we get to shake your hand that night, or fist bump, or head nod, whatever they allow us to do. You've done so much for the sport. We've seen it as we've covered the sport. You mean a lot to a lot of people, so congratulations again.
Well, thanks, George. And listen, that night it's so important for me, but really it's all about GSP. That's the real guy, and it'll be exciting to see him there. And with all the stuff I do, I just want to leave it on this: is that high school sports is still a big passion for me to be involved as a commissioner and working with the kids and the coaches and stuff. So I never forget that part of my life either. So thank you.
Well, if I may, any thoughts on the powerful modern day Monarchs? Did you happen to see any highlights? What are your thoughts on that powerhouse out of the mean streets of Santa Ana? One Gorgeous George went there, That's why I'm very proud of that school.
I was very impressed. I was not there. I've seen. I actually have the film from that game. We get it on this huddle thing, so people give me calls, or coaches give me look at this play. Not Liberty didn't in this game, but modern day looks so good. And like we said, that league is such a tough league. If they go undefeated there, they should be the number one team in the country. I want to see how good IMG is this year. They better not play the Bishop Sycamores anymore.
Yeah, those guys. What were they trying to do? Something like that. Wasn't there a Findlay Prep that was kind of like a made-up school, I guess, that had a lot of all-stars in basketball?
Findlay Prep was a real school. They met.
Was it a real school?
Yeah, they had classes, and it was at Henderson International was a campus. And look how many guys went from there to the pros. But Cliff, it was scholastically okay. They couldn't play in the NIA league, but they played Bishop Gorman every year, and they played a couple other games with different teams. I think with Clark and maybe Palo Verde or something. But that was a great time, and I think now you're going to see CCSN come up with a junior college team. Maybe it's this year, maybe next year. That'll be good for the local kids. And we got a lot of good players here. This is a good city for hoops.
We had a friend named Steve Straub, who you met a couple times. He passed away about almost 2 years ago. He coached at Liberty, and he was always frustrated because it was tough to compete against Bishop Gorman. And then he goes, he used to tell us this Findlay Prep. He goes, I'm not even sure they're a real school. He made it sound like there was no campus, but you're telling me they did have a campus and classes? Well, I'm sure they had classes. I just didn't know they had a campus.
They were on the campus of Henderson International, and those kids had to go to classes. So, but I know that's a popular misconception, but it was a real classes, and they've had some good coaches go through there. We assigned the officials, and it worked out really good. I wish they were still here.
Oh wow! Okay, well I'm glad you sorted me out on that one, because the intel I was given wasn't as accurate then. All right, again, thank you, sir, for the time. We'll see you in about a week here in Las Vegas.
Thanks. Very good. Thanks, Rose. Thanks, George.